Imagine your child is born with a congenital heart defect that causes excessive blood flow to their lungs. Within the first few weeks of being born, your baby will undergo an open heart surgery where a band is tied around their pulmonary artery until they are strong enough for the eventual corrective surgery. Of the babies born with congenital heart defects, 1 in 4 will require a major surgical procedure within their first year of life. There are a number of congenital heart defects, including VSDs, AVSDs, and HLHS. Defects like these can cause improper blood flow through the heart, resulting in overworked lungs from the increased volumetric flow. Babies with septal defects are born with holes in their septum that separates the high-pressure left side of the heart from the lower-pressure right side of the heart. This results in higher pressure blood exiting the heart from the right side, causing elevated pressures in the pulmonary artery. Without intervention, this can lead to irreversible damage to their pulmonary circulation. As the newborn may not be strong enough to undergo the corrective surgery immediately, a palliative therapy called pulmonary artery banding is often performed. The baby undergoes an open heart surgery where a Teflon strip is tied around the pulmonary artery to reduce blood flow to the lungs. However, PA bands can migrate up to cause branch stenosis or require adjustments as the child's vasculature grows. This may require additional invasive surgeries that results in extensive recovery time and thus a poorer quality of life. For needs finding with stakeholders and clinicians at the Duke Cath Lab and Duke Children's Hospital, it became evident that the number of invasive open heart surgeries that patients undergo had to be minimized. Thus, our team focused on developing a non-surgical transcatheter device to restrict excess blood flow through the main pulmonary artery to replace PA banding. Competitive analysis and IP landscaping, a transcatheter flow restriction device for our target pediatric population is almost non-existent, which provides a large opportunity to be a disruptive technology in the market that could eventually replace the conventional PA banding surgical approach. After many iterations and refinements, CardiP presents the Koi Flow Restrictor, a simple yet elegant transcatheter implantable device. Closely understanding our clinical needs helped us develop technical product requirements that accounted for device design and user needs. We found that the device needed to be compact enough to fit inside a 5 French catheter, sized large enough to anchor itself in a 2 mm landing zone within the main pulmonary artery, designed so that it does not impinge on the pulmonary valve, allows perfusion and mitigates stagnation of blood around the device through open cell geometry, and stays lodged in the artery to eliminate pulmonary device embolization. After rigorous solution landscaping and several concept iterations, we developed a device that embodies the user needs and technical requirements that were compiled during the design process. Motivated by technical feasibility, our final design is a balloon expandable device that ultimately gives the user more control. The Koi, made out of a cobalt chrome alloy, consists of a device frame, anchors, and occlusion pedals covered in a PTFE membrane. The device frame is a balloon expandable sinusoidal ring that opens in the main pulmonary artery, while the 3 anchors extend into the left branch PA. The torsional force provided by the anchors as they bend into the left branch securely lodges the device in the artery and prevents device migration within the short landing zone of the main pulmonary artery. The 3 occlusion pedals are bent in a conical shape to provide the necessary resistance to flow. The balloon expandable aspect of the device also allows for acute and chronic adjustability of the pedals. Physicians can achieve optimal clinical flow parameters during the initial procedure by incrementally expanding the occlusion pedals with the balloon catheter. Additional minimally invasive transcatheter procedures can be performed to slowly open up the occlusion pedals further as the child grows. Therefore, the child will not have to undergo an open heart surgery until their eventual corrective surgery. The current prototype iteration for testing was constructed from stainless steel wire using basic stent braiding techniques with a mandrel and metal pegs. The PTFE membrane for the occlusion pedals was emulated by dip coating in latex. This prototype is 2.5 times scale to the actual design at a nominal diameter of 2.5 centimeters. For proof of concept testing, the team initially constructed a bench test to simulate the pulmonary artery flow and pressures of our target population using a bucket on an elevated surface. Over the course of the project, we constructed a more robust test setup to measure the percent reduction in flow using water. The occlusion pedals were bent in 3 different configurations: fully opened, partially closed, and fully closed, with 60 millimeters of mercury of laminar flow through the tubing. The results from this experiment validate that a range of flow restriction can be achieved by the occlusion pedals. The different configurations of the pedals achieved percent flow reductions of 7.5%, 12.5%, and 31.9% respectively. We also simulated PA banding by constructing the diameter of the tubing to demonstrate that the device can achieve flow reduction comparable to that of the conventional method. As initial testing was done with water, we expect a greater range in flow reduction in future testing with blood due to its higher viscosity. Bench testing was also conducted using a 3cc silicone pediatric balloon catheter with our prototype to determine balloon expandability and balloon adjustability of our design. The device is deployed by expanding the balloon at the sinusoidal ring, deflating the balloon, and pushing forward to the distal end of the occlusion pedals to open the pedals to the appropriate extent. The Koi is a Class 3 cardiac implantable device. With an orphan patient subset of less than 8,000, we plan to apply for a humanitarian use device and follow the humanitarian device exemption pathway. The HDE pathway requires us to provide sufficient information to determine that the device does not pose a significant risk to patients and that the probable benefit to health outweighs the risk of injury or illness. Under the HDE pathway, we are only required to prove safety of the device and not efficacy, which is necessary for the PMA pathway. Proving safety to the FDA will require sufficient bench, animal, and perhaps clinical testing. As highlighted in our development timeline, we plan to submit a Q submission to the FDA prior to HUD filing. The purpose of the Q submission is to help the FDA understand what the clinical situation is, what the undeserved need is, and how our device meets that need, all of which is necessary to qualify as a HUD. After bench testing is complete, we will assess whether additional clinical data is needed through animal testing or clinical trials. If our bench testing can prove safety and probable benefit and meets our clinical endpoints, we may not need additional clinical data or an extensive clinical trial. Our initial target market is approximately 630 PA banding cases per year. With the $2,000 labor burden and manufacturing cost, the minimum serviceable available market would be valued at $1.26 million. Since pediatric populations tend to be smaller with rarer conditions, devices and ventures in the space are not very well funded. Understanding our market, we have positioned ourselves as a nonprofit organization following the footsteps of St. Jude's Children's Hospital System because we realize our ultimate goal is not to make profits, but rather get our device out to babies in need, while also relieving the financial burden on patient families. However, like any device venture, we do require funds for device manufacturing and production to launch the organization. Our business model is based on donations from both large and small donors. With initial larger donors, we hope to leverage $5 million in donations by 2026 to fund the organization and initialize device production. In the coming years, we hope to raise funds through crowdsourcing methods and smaller, generous donors. With continued support, it is projected that by 2030, the donations needed to sustain and grow CARDI-P can be brought down by 66%, amounting to $2,700 per device per patient. The Koi provides a unique value to each of our stakeholders. For our patients, it improves their overall quality of life. For the interventional cardiologists, it provides a transcatheter solution to maintain goal hemodynamics. For pediatric surgeons, it limits the amount of scar tissue, improving outcomes of the corrective surgery. And lastly, the patient's family will have the opportunity to better their baby's quality of life without incurring the costs of several surgical procedures. Over the course of the past 3 semesters, we have discovered pressing needs in the pediatric cardiac space through clinical observations. Through the solution landscaping and concept development, we have designed a device that serves these unmet clinical and user needs. With this concept, we have developed a functional prototype, conducted bench testing, identified a regulatory pathway, and successfully filed for a provisional patent. We currently have a higher fidelity prototype manufactured with more precise machining tools, as well as a 1-to-1 scale titanium prototype made from Duke's 3D metal printer. We'd like to take this time to sincerely thank the Duke Cath Lab and all the clinicians at the Duke Health Center that took the time to meet with us and provide valuable insights. We'd also like to thank our resources at the Pratt School of Engineering, including Matt Brown, the Student Machine Shop, and the Mechanical Engineering and Material Science Lab for their help in manufacturing our prototypes. We finally would like to thank our wonderful mentors and professors in Duke Design Help, Paul, Eric, and Joe. We could not have gotten this far without your continued guidance and support. On behalf of Cardi P, thank you.